Welcome, Avni. I'm super excited to welcome you to today's webinar. Avni is a young entrepreneur who completely disrupted the food retail sector in India with a specialty food store, Foodhall. In just 9 years, Avni has opened 9 stores across metros and established Foodhall as India's premium lifestyle food destination. With revenues exceeding 300 crores, the business broke even within 3 years and has been growing at a steady rate of 15% ever since. Foodhall is one of my favorite stores. As a person who loves food and international cuisine, I always feel like a kid in a candy store. And there's always something new to try, live food stations, a cafe serving up fresh exotic cuisine, specialty cheeses, spices, drinks from around the world, and my favorite, trying free food samples. So, Avni, we started the Uplearn Academy during the lockdown period to keep our network of over 1 lakh students and thousands of teachers and other stakeholders informed and motivated during these uncertain times. We have had stalwarts in their fields speaking on relevant topics like spirituality, wellness, mental health, law, and cybersecurity. Our latest series is on inspiring entrepreneurial journeys. And as you know, we have a lot of young audience. So your story is particularly relevant to us. So welcome. We're so excited to have you, Avni.
Thank you so much for having me. And you've been very kind. I think the initiative you guys are doing is really great.
Thank you so much. So Avni, you joined your father's mega retail group, the Future Group, at a very young age, and you immediately disrupted the entire food retail space with your own brand. Tell us about how Foodhall idea came about and how it has evolved over the last 10 years.
So I joined straight out of college when I was 21. I don't know about, and I think, when I joined, Foodhall already existed because we'd opened a store in May in 2011 in Palladium, and I officially joined in June. At that time, the idea was to do something gourmet, something upmarket. That's what one of our landlords had asked us to create. And when I came back from college, my dad just told me that, we've opened this new store. Why don't you go check it out? And he and I had been discussing a few ideas ever since before my graduation on, where I could contribute. And he always said that, maybe do something in the lifestyle space. I went to the store and I came back home and he went like, what did you think? And I went like, oh, I think it lacks imagination. So he said, what do you mean? So I said, well, I just don't think it's quite up there. So he said, okay. And then he said, okay, then get involved. So that's really where my journey with Foodhall started. I think 10 days after the first store was launched, I got involved. We had a small team, of like 3 or 4 people, and a bunch of them are still there with us. Where we started out, and for one whole year, we just had one store, which we used as an experiment and as a lab to keep on trying new things. So every Saturday and Sunday, I used to be on the shop floors. This is something that we picked up when we were kids because we spent all our childhood on shop floors. So every Saturday and Sunday, we used to be there trying to experiment and do something new. Whether it was importing tomatoes from Holland or bringing in Hass avocados from Peru or trying out new cheeses and seeing how the audience reacts to it. I remember going to one of our competitor stores and my father taught me how to read how products get imported into India. So he would be like, okay, this is, how you read the back label and you see the name of the import. So I remember for 2 years, me and my CEO, we used to, and we still do this actually, we used to go across various stores in the city, whoever used to sell imported products or anything important, we used to look at the back label, we used to click pictures and be like, okay, this is something we should stock. So I think it was great because we've grown Foodhall very steadily, if you will see. We started our first store in 2011 and we opened the next one in Bangalore in 2012. And it was great that we had a whole year to learn, to make mistakes, to correct ourselves, before we could do a lot more with the brand.
Super. So Future Group started in 1992 with the first Pantaloons store and has grown into one of India's biggest retail conglomerate with brands across segments like FMCG, fashion, home stores, etc. So what are the biggest lessons you learned about retail growing up? How involved were you in the business before starting at Foodhall?
I think all our dinner table conversations revolve around business. I don't think we know how to do, in the sense that we don't know how to dissociate ourselves from having, shop talk at the dinner table. So from a very early age, I've been going to office. Even when I was even when I was in college, my father insisted on interning with him. He insisted on interning with him. So all my 4 summers, I came back and I spent, being with him in every meeting possible. So he made sure that we got exposed to all facets of the group, all sorts of all sorts of decision making processes, whether it was how do you choose a store and which location do you pick, to merchandising, to how how deals are struck, how relationships are maintained, how partnerships are forged. I think we saw the whole gamut while we were younger. Maybe
Okay.
that's what made it easier for me and my sister both to join, relatively young and out of college.
Right. So what do you think with Foodhall? Were you at the right place at the right time? Or do you think you created the premium food retail niche in India?
I would, I don't know. I think it would have to be a bit of both.
Okay.
We always believe that in the luxury segment, I personally believe that sometimes customers don't know they want it till they have it.
Right.
But that being said, I think 2011 was a great time to start because India was changing. The food habits across the world were growing tremendously. So if you see, eating global food is a very recent phenomenon. It is a trend that maybe picked up somewhere in the 1980s, and the 1990s 2000s is really when the trend really became very, very popular.
Right.
So it's not like India has not kept up to date with the global trends. And nowadays, when we notice global trends, we don't think we're behind a single trend. Even in lockdown, I think world over, the trends have been very seamless, and that's the power of social media. But in 2011, there had become a certain section of society that was exposed, that was traveling a lot. A lot of NRIs had come back. I think people's palates had begun to get evolved. So it was a bit of both, yeah, I do think that we were more audacious. We did try to do things like hash avocados, big beef tomatoes, set up tea counters, bring in over 100 varieties of cheese. We were still the first store, and I still think that at Foodhall, the endeavor very much is to always push the envelope and keep on trying new things. So when we opened Bandra, there isn't a store like that in India, where you have a restaurant, a cookery studio, a cafe, a tea salon, and various products available under one roof, and it's 25,000 square foot across 4 floors. So
Amazing.
I definitely think that we do try and innovate and experiment, but it's a bit of both. I think that's what our customer and our audience demands out of us, and
The
they want to see that with us.
Right. The reason I ask this question is because every time I go to food hall, I always learn something new. And I see so many people trying things that they have never tried before in their lives. So it's almost like you're educating the Indian audiences in an international cuisine to a certain extent.
Our motto at Foodhall is inspire, educate, and inform.
Right.
So whenever we lay out our stores, we design our stores, we try to inform customers of everything that's available. We try to educate them, and then ultimately, cooking is an art, and
Right.
we want people to enjoy the process. We want to be part of a customer's journey when they cook something interesting, when they make something nice for their family, for their friends, and be part of that whole experience, because food is something that you only enjoy when it's shared. It's
Sure.
not enjoyed in isolation. At least as Indians, I don't believe we enjoy food in isolation.
Right. So, again, coming back to you joining the business, what challenges did you face as a second generation entrepreneur? And was it hard to enter your father's business? And how did you overcome or these challenges, or if you had any, or how did you carve a niche of your own when you first entered? Maybe you were like 20, 21 years old, very young.
Yeah, I was 21. I think my sister joined the business 5 years ago. She's 5 years older to me. So, when I joined, it was not surprising for everybody, and they didn't necessarily doubt the sincerity with which you come. With that being said, I'm sure when I wanted to bring various products, people did probably think I was a bit, crazy, because the first time I brought big beef tomatoes and I brought it home for my mom to try, and I told her the price, she was like, she literally looked at my father and she said, "She's mad. Who's gonna buy tomatoes at 2,500 rupees a kilo? Like, that's retarded. Those kind of price points, who's going to buy?" And my father was most excited about it. He was like, "Wow, how much more expensive can we sell?" So I think, but yeah, I definitely do think that everyone in a family business has to, it takes time to carve your own niche, and to to gain the success of professionals around you. And when you're working, there's really no difference whether you're a professional or a family member at the end of the day, because if there's accountability, data and numbers, show everything. I've been very fortunate. I found some great people, who I could work along with. I was able to get a lot of, I was able to get a lot of free hand to build Foodhall the way I wanted to. I've had a lot of heated arguments with my father over the trajectory of the business and where the business should arise. And I think those kind of arguments have always helped nurture the business and help grow the business. So in that sense, I think the experience has been very interesting so far. Being in a family business yet being very professionally run.
Fabulous. It's the best of both the worlds.
Yeah, it most certainly is.
Yeah. So what are the core values and ethos at Foodhall?
I think, the future group values stand true for us too. Whether it's Indianness, going with the flow, um, uh, simplicity, humility. I think these are all group values that we imbibe. But above and keeping those values intact, I think love and passion for food is very, very important. And one way and criteria in which we measure every employee is through his love and passion for food. Because see, we realize that food is such a vast topic; it's never ending. I'm still learning things about food that I necessarily didn't know 2 years ago. So it's not necessarily your knowledge that sets you apart, but it's also your passion and the drive that you bring to the business. So we always try and find people to join us at Foodhall who are passionate about food.
So I've heard that you have a very young team of people. So what are the advantages or challenges that millennials pose in working with them?
I think being a young team is great. You can be agile. You're much more quicker to respond to newer trends. Nowadays, sometimes when I used to sit in team meetings, I used to feel so out of it because my team used to, if we were discussing poke bowls, there used to be 30 recipes on poke bowls in the next 5 minutes on our desks. Whether it was discussing restaurants in San Francisco or somewhere in Melbourne, my team's fully clued in. So I think that's great because you have a team that thinks alike. You have a team that is able to understand trends, understand customers a lot more easily in this business, and who's able to pick up things maybe a lot quicker. But at the same time, I think sometimes wisdom is missing. There's also a lot of arrogance that sets in when we're younger. We're not necessarily, success comes a lot. If success comes a lot easily to us, it can go a lot easily as well. So I think one has to balance both. We do have a young team, but we've tried to balance it out. With a few, with a lot of people actually who provide wisdom, who provide depth, who provide knowledge, who provide insights, which necessarily a team that is young may not be able to have. And another thing I feel is, I learned this from my father when I was growing up. I think my father has always taught us that relationships are most important. Whether it's business, whether it's personal life, building a relationship, working with people is the most important thing. This is something that I feel, also comes with a lot of maturity, and it comes with more experience.
Right.
To be able to build and nurture and foster those relationships.
So a lot of your employees have actually grown with Foodhall, say since 2011 to today.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to have a lot of people join us and continue with us.
Great. So are you personally involved in the hiring process, and what do you look for in a potential Foodhall employee?
I think the first and foremost thing we look at is value alignment.
Okay.
Because we do work in a particular way, and also we believe that retail is an ever-changing business. If somebody is not comfortable with ambiguity, because you may have a different thought in the morning from evening, and
Right.
that may evolve and change. Like we've had to change our business so much during COVID. So if the person is not comfortable with dealing with ambiguity, then how do you survive situations like that? So we definitely think that ambiguity, ability to deal with ambiguity, the ability to go with the flow, and again passion for food and alignment to our group values. I think that's very, very important for us.
Super. So very clear on those fronts. So each Foodhall store is very special to me. Whenever I visit one, I always find something new that I discover. And but I believe, I haven't visited personally, but I believe your Bandra store is something else. Could you tell us a little bit more about it, and what innovations have you brought about in that store that sets it apart from any other store?
So the Bandra store was something we conceptualized when we were running Chanakya Puri in 2017.
Okay.
We drafted some plans for our for our partners there. And when I showed it to my father, he said that, now I think you're ready to do a 25,000 square foot store and you should start looking for a property. And it's surprising because ever since our first store in Palladium opened in Bombay, it had been 6 or 7 years where I used to sit in my car and go to Bandra, or, because that's where we wanted our new store to be. And we kept on looking for properties and we found nothing. But 3 months after my father saying, okay, I think now we're ready to find a new store, we managed to find a property which was 4-storied. And back in 2011, on one of our work trips to Japan, in one of the malls, my father had seen a cookery studio. And he got very fascinated, and that idea had stayed with us. So he kept on telling me that when you build a large store, you should think about doing a cookery studio. So I think, and I think that, I love traveling. I've traveled the globe to understand food stores, understand retail experiences. And we kept on innovating and thinking about what would it be like, for India to do something like this. So as the store started coming along, we thought about putting in a tea salon. Cafe that started with our Bangalore store in 2012 and it did really well. So we knew that, cafes had a lot of potential. But then we said that, okay, since it's 25,000 square foot, let a casual dining experience be the cafe. But let's do something more fine dining or a little bit more upmarket with, an Italian fine dining restaurant. So we created an Italian bistro. And whether it was, cheese cellars that we put up, cold cheese rooms for people to also go walk in, pick up various cheeses, or whether it was our spice counters. I think all these ideas were with us, and, with each store we opened, we tried to do something new. So finally, when Bandra opened, we had a host of new ideas to put into one store.
But you also created a lot of your own brands, correct? Which you stock at all your...
Yeah, so the reason to create our new brands actually started somewhere in 2013. Again, on one of our trips abroad, we found a spice store, in Copenhagen that, I had not seen anywhere ever. And, we were just traveling, and we reached one of those European food halls, and we saw one of these, and we struck up a conversation with the proprietor, and he told us about his journey and how he took a bus from Copenhagen to India, and how he had a guru in the Himalayas. And then he and I remained in touch, and I invited him to India to help me start up this spice counter. And I think that's really where our journey on doing our own thing started, because we realized that at Foodhall, experiences were important and customers were looking for experiences. And whenever we partnered with somebody necessarily and we didn't control the end-to-end experience, the result was not the same. And we weren't happy with the customer experience and the customer journey. So that's how we decided that, okay, it makes sense for us to build our own brands in certain key areas, depending on our alignment and our objectives, because gifting was a very big business for us. So all the brands that we built have been built with gifting as a business in mind, because they all have a gifting angle to it.
Right.
We have our own brands on spices, on tea, on honey, and some luxury foods.
And nuts as well, right? Karmic.
Yeah. So Karmic is a brand at Future Consumer, not at Foodhall. But yeah. But Foodhall has built a few of its own brands. And we believe in branding every space. So our chocolates brand is called Zocco 57 because we go back to the origins of chocolate. Our spice brand is called Ark, which is derived from the Sanskrit word essence. Then we have the House of Tea by Foodhall. So we put a lot of thought. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of thinking behind any brand that we launch.
So have you thought about taking these brands out of Foodhall to other retail stores as well?
Yeah, so now we do sell some of these brands on Amazon.
Okay.
Some of these brands are available in various Future Group channels. And yeah, we definitely do think that, wherever we find a future for these brands, we'd love to explore and evaluate opportunities.
Fantastic. So I have a question here from the audience, actually. Is there a store from all your travels across the world that you really love? Maybe one from which you got a lot of your inspirations? Or would you recommend a store to us when we travel to have a look at?
We're personally very inspired by Asia when we looked at retail. So definitely all the food halls in Japan are mind-blowing.
Okay,
so and all departmental stores in Japan have something called a daichaki, which is basically a food superstore at the basement, where they have various stalls and brands and everyone coming together. And we also think fruits and vegetables is a business. The way Japanese worship fruit, very few. So my team and I do a lot of these study trips. So our last study trip in 2019 was to Japan, where we went and we studied fruits as a business, and we studied how Japanese celebrate and sell fruit. So yeah, and at the same time, I think some of the stores in London are very fascinating. So
Right.
I think Harrods Food Hall and Selfridges Food Hall, there's always something new to see for us also when we go.
Yeah. So could you tell everyone a little bit about the concept of the general word food hall and what it means?
So I think food hall doesn't mean anything. It's a name that my father gave to the brand, and it's stuck on. I think food hall just means an amalgamation of various foods from across the globe. And the idea is to have food stalls and to have tasting and to have sampling and to have a crazy variety of products. So
All
that's
under one roof.
why we have 100 varieties of over 150 varieties of cheese. We have berries from all over the world. We have 4 varieties of asparagus, about 20 varieties of lettuce. The idea was, and the idea still is, for a customer to come in and have an unhurried shopping experience.
Okay.
And now food halls across the world, not only can you shop, but you can also dine. You can also grab a coffee. You can also grab a pastry. You can sit down and maybe indulge in some tea. You can attend a class. You can attend a wine tasting. You can attend a cheese tasting. You can attend a tea ceremony. So that's the idea for food hall.
So what do you think, how difficult is it to access good wine in India to pair with some of the foods that you sell? And do you have any plans to source wines from other countries?
So wine retailing as a business is not so simple, and we have we have partners who do the businesses for us, who set up wine shops within our stores. But I believe that the wine industry is also keeping up with global trends and trying to make whatever can be made available to customers at affordable prices, given all the duties and all the other logistical challenges that we face as a country.
Okay. So so what trends do you foresee in consumer retail behavior, particularly when it comes to food?
I think now COVID has changed everything.
Okay.
We see every experience going digitally. We see home becoming the center point and the kitchen becoming the center point for the next 2 to 3 years. All family experiences are shared with the kitchen and with food. It's just become, if it was so integral to our lives before COVID or pre-COVID, post-COVID, I think it's become even more important because the way everyone is bonding over food, is social media is still it's still going crazy with trends, and there's no stopping people when it comes to baking bread or like attending Zoom classes or trying to have shared meals or parties or whatever it is. So we definitely do think that I think people are going to experiment a lot more than they did before. People's kitchens are going to be filled with many more interesting ingredients. Even if your home did make a burger before, you are going to upgrade it and you're going to find ways to make it more exciting. Restaurant quality dining is going to become very, very popular at home, because for the next 1.5 years, everyone, depending on when a vaccine comes out, people will be more cautious of going out and eating. So I think pre-COVID, we'd all gotten very used to eating out. At least the food hall audience have. We were all eating at least 2 to 3 meals out. So it's very important. And, food delivery business has not come back to that extent post-COVID. So we are seeing a big demand from customers for restaurant quality food, that needs to be served at home.
So that's where ingredients come in. Good quality
ingredients come in. That's where a lot of the things that we make at our cafes, because now our cafes and even our Italian restaurant has started retailing all its dips, its pastas, its fresh homemade pastas, its sauces, its breads. And we're doing like things like DIY pizza kits, DIY laksa curry kits, various things like that. Because the idea is, how do you give people an experience from the cafe or from the restaurant, but at home?
Got it. So talking about COVID, we've seen a lot of innovations and people come up with crazy ideas during COVID to keep their customers engaged. What all did you do at Foodhall?
So I think one of the first few things we did was, we tried to make the business as digital as possible. We tried to extend our home delivery reach, work with as many partners as possible to make sure the Foodhall catalogs were available to a wide variety of people. and a wide variety of people. And people could shop sitting in the comfort of their homes because people were really scared to get out and still are. The second thing we did was we tried to make sure that all the experiences that we were offering at stores could be taken online. So, our cookery studio started doing virtual cooking classes, for customers for free, started doing video recipes, and then eventually we launched the entire cookery studio calendar online.
Amazing.
Yeah, and the whole endeavor is that Foodhall is about experiences, and you come to Foodhall for experiences. So how do we make the entire shopping environment safe for you? How do we make it hygienic for you? How do we make it stress free for you? And how do we, be part of your, be part of your life? That everyone's life to some extent has changed and has been turned upside down. So how do we play a role, in the customer's life is very important for us at this given moment in time.
You were certainly very important for me during COVID. I ordered a lot from Foodhall throughout COVID. So,
But I'm happy to hear.
so I have another question here from the audience. Considering you have a lot of fresh, perishable produce on your shelves, how do you manage your waste? Are there specific eco-friendly policies that you follow at Foodhall?
So, I'm asked this question a lot, and actually, it's a misnomer that there's a lot of waste because we don't generate that much waste.
Okay.
And we've taken a variety of initiatives to even, so our fruits and vegetables business is very successful. The only wastage that we have to a large extent is, water loss and shrinkage from the product itself. So when a product is 2 days old or 3 days old, it loses certain moisture. So I think that's part of the wastage that we have in the fruits and vegetables business, because so many of our stores have in-house cafes and in-house bakeries, and we're doing fresh stuff all the time. The idea, guacamole bars and things like that. The idea also is that we don't waste too much. Whatever is going to go bad, the chefs in the store tend to use it up, whether it's for sampling, whether it's for a customer, product to be made or to be used at the cafe. So we try and make sure that wastage is minimized and kept to a minimum. Then when it comes to breads and dips and other fresh products that lie on our shelves, we've been able to speak to a lot of NGOs, and we've tied up with a few. We had actually tied up pre-COVID. During COVID, these initiatives have been at a bit of a back burner because of various lockdowns and things like that. But we have tied up with a few NGOs where we can give them products the same day itself to give to children and the needy people. So we are trying to do our best and also minimize wastage. Nowadays data is so sharp and so readily available that these problems don't really they don't pose to be such big challenges.
So in one of your interviews, I heard that you use data analytics in a very big way in your companies. And what role does data analytics play in Foodhall, and to what extent is it successfully applied?
I think data tells you everything. Foodhall is a business where as a team, everyone's very passionately involved. So we do get attached to certain products or certain ideas that we don't necessarily want to destroy. And we've always believed in destroying our past at Future Group. We're not attached to a business. We're not attached to an idea. We're not attached to a product. So I think data helps you destroy whatever you create yourself. I think that's the primary role of data.
Very well said. Very well put. So could you explain to audiences, I read once a book about how retail stores are organized and how the fresh produce is on the outside and the packaged goods on the inside. So how is a typical retail store, if I know nothing about it and I go to a supermarket, how is it organized?
So we don't organize Foodhall one way or the other.
Okay.
Each of our stores also look different because we want it to look different. None of our stores have the same size, and the catchment area is so different that you tend to have a different looking store, and that's what we wanted to do with Foodhall. But that being said, every retailer follows a typical format. Like if you have your processed food business or your FMCG business, that requires a certain number of bays and a certain number of infrastructure. So for example, my chillers and my freezers will always be put where I'll get water pipeline connections. So like you have to take into consideration all of these things. For example, Bandra was a 4-story store. So we debated a lot about where we should put certain categories. And my father insisted that, fruits and vegetables should be on the ground floor. Because for a store, a neighborhood store on a main road of Linking Road, to have fruits and vegetables, on its ground floor in itself was, one of its kind.
Yeah.
But we wanted to start the store with freshness because I think that's what we stand for. We stand for fresh produce, we stand for fresh stores. So at least in a food hall store, we'd like you to enter the store with fruits and vegetables as a section or bakery as a section.
Okay.
I think a lot of retailers have different norms that they follow, but a lot of stores do start with fresh. A lot of stores, and the idea also always is that you start with, you end up loading. Another thought, school of thought in grocery stores or hypermarkets is you start with the staple section, so you can load your trolley with the atta, dal, chawals of the world, all the heavy stuff below. You come to fruits and vegetables last because those kind of products need to be on top. So
Right.
I think it depends on whether you're a supermarket, a hypermarket, a neighborhood store. So a lot of things, and also then what kind of audience you're catering to. I think all these factors play a role in the kind of store you build.
Super interesting. So, with Foodhall, what was important for you, Avni? Initially, was it profitability or building custom acquisition? And has that changed since you started?
I think profitability today is most important. During a COVID scenario, I think profitability is most important, but also maybe it's because I've already gone through the other journey. When I
Right.
started Food Hall, I was fanatical about diluting the brand. I didn't want to do anything that was remotely going to associate us with a value format.
Okay.
So till date, we barely do any discounts, any promotions, any offers at Food Hall. If we do it in a very strategic way. We do it on certain days, and we have to be really convinced about the idea to even today give deals and discounts. This is not to say that we don't believe in having, value for money pricing or promotions or any of that. It's just that we don't want to be mistaken for a hypermarket. And that is something that, I was very fanatical about when I first started out. I think there was this whole hangover of, Big Bazaar in the group that time. And our previous forays into gourmet grocery retail had not necessarily done so well. So I was just very, conscious that this brand needs to stand apart. So that was the first thing. I think the second thing was the variety and the quality is not something that I want to compromise on even today. Foodhall is a long tail business. It's not a business that can sustain on 500 SKUs alone. Because customers do come in looking for that one truffle, that one yuzu sauce, that mirin, or that harissa paste. They do come in looking for like liquid aminos or like nutritional yeast, and it's very important for us to provide all those SKUs. They may or may not necessarily be your top 500, your top 500 sellers, but whether it's a variety of noodles, whether it's a variety of jams, whether it's a variety of mustards, it really breaks my heart to see shelves where we do not have all the mustard variants on it, be it French, be it American, be it Dijon, be it an English mustard. Like in the way I still look at category and assortment and merchandising, Food Hall stands for variety and assortment, and I think we still need to give it to our customer. We are a specialty food store, and that really hasn't changed. The whole journey has been about trying to make a specialty food store profitable, and that's what I think. I'm proud to say that we've been able to do.
Yeah, it's amazing. Initially, I'm sure you had doubts about losing customers because of price points. Because in India, we always think the customer is very price
Yeah.
sensitive.
I
To
think I think a customer is price sensitive no matter which segment of society you're catering to. I have friends even today messaging me that, oh, by the way, I got avocados cheaper here, or this was available cheaper here. My mom is constantly telling me that. We always have that kind of customer feedback coming our way, and that's something we're very mindful of. And and I mean, retail is a 24/7, 365 days 365-day business. You have to constantly keep on correcting yourself, and you have to keep on, and it's very dynamic. So that kind of thing continues to be there. But yeah, we do think that customers are very, very value conscious, and I think we're also very conscious of that fact.
So Foodhall is all about an experience. You enter the bricks and mortar store and you experience different things, the smells, the sights, the taste. And now you're saying that, the customers are moving towards more retail for food. So how do you give that same kind of physical experience that Foodhall offers online? Is that
So
be a challenge for you, right?
I think the experience online is to maybe not replicate the success you have offline. I think offline our stores still stand for experience. In a post-COVID world, once COVID is over, we'd like to bring back all our sampling counters. We'd like to bring back, we'd like to see the buzz in our cafes again. we'd like customers to shop without a mask, with a coffee in their hand, enjoying it while they are shopping around. So I don't think that physical experience can be replicated on digital. But I think digital has come with its own set of, pros. So, it brings us one step closer to a customer in today's world when people don't necessarily want to step out. Whatever experiences one can recreate at home, one should be able to do that digitally. It gives convenience to customers. The idea of, having an assortment, a catalog, having quality products, having the variety that you're used to having at the store, and being trustworthy for the customer still very much stands true. So we want to try and build on these experiences online. And then whether it's cooking classes or Instagram lives, or whether it's through our content, our video content, we want to just try and engage with the customer as much as we can.
And you would continue this trend even post-COVID?
Yeah,
I see this trend continuing.
I think it's hard to. I think we're also grappling with what a post-COVID world will look like. Things are changing every day, and things are very dynamic. And we're still trying to understand what a post-COVID world means for each one of us, and our choices, and the way we interact with one another, the way we interact with supermarkets, malls, communities at large will undergo some shift. And I think at the moment it's too early to comment on what that shift is going to be. I do not necessarily think that I am so qualified to determine what that shift is going to be. So I'm watching like anybody else is, and we're trying to make sense of it. So let's see how experiences do get built up. But I do think that we definitely have fast tracked the whole digital experience. And it's going to be a mixture of both for sure. Yes, I do think that's going to happen.
So in education, I heard somebody the other day say that we are foreseeing a CBC model, which is click, brick, click. So I guess it might be true for other industries as well, like a blended model, model stores plus an online presence.
So we were anyways moving to a blended model last year. When we did a few partnerships with Swiggy and Scootsie and a bunch of other hyperlocal apps, and with our partnership with Amazon and launching of a Foodhall app, which is on the way, we anyway started thinking of a blended model because that's the way to survive in today's day and age. But I think COVID definitely did
fast forwarded everything.
Fast forward the entire process. Yeah.
So that was actually going to be my next question. So how much of a role did your education and exposure abroad play in the ideation of Foodhall?
I think it played a very, very big role. I would have to lie and say that my education. So we've always grown up. My father's always encouraged us to look at education not from a perspective to get good grades or to get a 4.0 GPA, but to broaden your mind. I think I went to college knowing that these are going to be my 4 years to travel and to explore the world and to look at life from a new lens. So when I did a study abroad in Europe, I traveled every week. And I traveled every week and I tried so many new kinds of food. I think that's what, that was my first tryst with food. And, really understanding food at a deeper level. Whether it was a few food classes I took towards the end of college, when my interest in food grew, I took a class at NYU that, spoke about how societies and world cultures evolve and how food plays such an important and integral role. I think classes like that were important because it gives me an edge to understand food maybe at a deeper level. So today when we do a Thai festival at Foodhall, or we do a Japanese festival at Foodhall, in my office, which is now shut, if you ever entered, you'd find about 100 books on food. Because I like doing that kind of research. I like being a geek about food.
That's amazing.
Not because I'm a foodie. I like to understand. I'm a sociologist. I did my master's I did my graduation in sociology and politics. So I still like understanding, how countries and how societies evolve and the kind of role food plays, and what role what kind of cultures and practices we can bring in, and how geography and planet affects, and climate affects, food that's grown in India versus Thailand versus America. So I think that's the way I approach food, and that's my understanding of food, and that's how I like to go deeper into a subject, and I like to detail it out for me to be able to create success stories at food.
That's amazing. So you're clearly very, very passionate about food. How did your passion for food start, and how does it translate into your real life? Do you cook a lot? Are you the one grocery shopping for your household?
Yeah, I grocery shop quite a bit. I think going to grocery stores is one of my favorite things to do
Mhm.
around the world. So there's not a single time I'll take a trip and I won't grocery shop. But I think my passion for food, maybe my mother's an excellent cook.
Okay.
Um, Growing up, I've eaten all kinds of food, and I was always one of those kids, where tuitions had to be held at her house because of my mom's food used to be so great. So I probably inherited my mom's love for cooking, and the way I experiment with food now is I love to cook and I love to feed people around me.
Mhm.
So I think that's I think, but I don't necessarily think that my love for food is one thing, and my love for detailing food out and understanding food at work is different. At retail, we always believe that you know, f- you know, you in any business actually without the details, the business doesn't end up becoming successful.
Mhm.
So all this detailing that I do for Food Hall is because I think it needs to be done for the business, and I
Mhm.
think it's important to do it for any business.
Mhm.
um, so I don't like to confuse the two. There are many days when I've had very heavy days studying, or like filling myself, or thinking too much about a particular food for me to like not want to indulge in food at home.
Mhm.
um, but that being said, I think I'm a passionate foodie. I love trying out new things.
Mhm.
I definitely love eating at all restaurants, and visiting all the top 50 restaurants in the world has been a passion of mine. It's definitely something that I'm very passionate about, and I love cooking. I think cooking is de-stressing, it's relaxing, it's a good thing to do. When you come back home from work,
Mhm.
or when you've had a hard day, it's a natural de-stressor for me. So I definitely do love cooking.
Awesome. So, what would be your advice for a budding entrepreneur, a young budding entrepreneur who's watching this?
I think the only advice would be like don't be afraid to fail. And more than ever, I think we all, and this is something that I talk to my father about all the time. I think as entrepreneurs, as business people, we all have to develop abilities to be able to deal with a vast variety of challenges. Like nobody's career is only going to have lows or ups. I think it's going to be a combination of both. So I think we have to all develop the resilience to be able to deal with all the ups and downs that come with being an entrepreneur, because there are many, many ups and downs that come with being an entrepreneur. So I think one is, we should not be afraid to fail. If we won't try, we won't know whether it succeeds or not.
Mhm.
So we have to try. We have to keep on. We have to be at it. It's our duty to try, and it's our duty to fail also. It's okay if we fail, but
Mhm.
I think we should be quick. We should learn from our mistakes. And yeah, I think as an entrepreneur, we everyone struggles with it, and I don't think you can build resilience in one day. I think it's
Mhm.
going to be a lifelong journey for any entrepreneur, and I think you would say the same as well,
Mhm.
because your business model has changed quite a bit
Mhm.
in COVID time. So I don't know. I'd like to ask the same question back to you.
Mhm.
How would you view it? But I just think that being resilient is very, very important.
No, absolutely. I think the ability to bounce back with the same level of enthusiasm
Yeah,
as when you fell, I think that's the most important thing.
yeah,
It's not just that you bounce back, but you have to do it with all the gusto and all the enthusiasm that you can muster.
yeah,
And
definitely.
that's what I believe. So Avni, you're the youngest uh, person we've had on the webinar. So I thought I'll introduce like a fun category into this webinar, which we've never done before. It's
Wow.
called a rapid fire round.
Great.
So I thought we'll do something fun and ask you a few fun questions to end this webinar.
Great.
Okay, so are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Awesome. Favorite cuisine?
Japanese.
Okay. Favorite chef, Indian and international?
Indian chef would have to be Alex Sanchez.
Mhm.
International would have to be a toss up between Ottolenghi and John George.
Love Ottolenghi.
Yeah.
Favorite restaurant in the world, including India?
This is a hard one.
Top three.
Top three. Top three. Um, I think I'll go back to like all my comfort places. So I love Japanese, so I have to say Zuma.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love the Japanese at Zuma. I love eating Italian at this place called Delfino in London
Mm-hmm.
for pizzas and
Mm-hmm.
pastas. And then I don't know. I'm thinking. I would find it very, very hard to pick one restaurant. But if it had to be in India, it would have to be Wasabi.
Wasabi. Excellent. Favorite food book, since you just said you have so many food books in your office. I just added this question.
I'm currently reading just a lot of I'm just in lockdown. I'm just cooking a lot of Ottolenghi recipes. So I would have to say all of his. And then I don't remember the names of the chefs, but the chefs from Palomar, and there are these 2 restaurants in London, and then they have their chains in Israel. So I really like their cookbooks. I identify a lot with the whole Mediterranean style of cooking. That's like my favorite style of cooking. Not necessarily eating, but style of cooking, because they also blend in a lot of Japanese and other flavors.
Sure.
So that's definitely my favorite style of cooking. So yeah.
So yeah, my copy of Plenty is quite tattered as well.
Yeah.
I totally get it. I love those recipes. Okay. Best advice you have ever received?
My father keeps on saying this, and as annoying as it is when he tells it to me whenever I want advice from him, I think it stands true. He keeps on telling me life is like a bicycle, just keep on riding, things will happen. So I think go with the flow.
Go with the flow. Fabulous. Describe your management style in 3 words.
I would have to say authoritative, because it is sort of authoritative. I can't lie on that. At the same time, it's got a lot of delegation involved, because I don't believe in micromanaging unless I absolutely need to, because I believe in saying that this is the way I want things done, and then I only micromanage if it's not done a particular way. So at the same time, I believe in giving a lot of freedom to people, who work with me, because I've had the same amount of freedom in my experience. So at the same time, there's a lot of delegation involved. It's authoritative, and I think there's a lot of passion involved in whatever I do.
Great. Education or experience?
Experience. But I enjoyed my educational journey for the experience. So always experience.
Okay. Who are your idols?
My father.
Your father, okay.
Yeah. Other than that, I recently read a book on women 2 years ago. It was one of these books by an Indian by an Indian lady, who covered all Indian entrepreneurs, and a few really stood out, and I just think that I don't necessarily have one other idol. I think if there's one person who I would always look up to, it would be my father, and then you know there'll be so many people, whether it's Steve Jobs or whether it's Bill Gates or whether it's, all these interesting women entrepreneurs I read. I think everyone has a very interesting story to say, and everyone has a very interesting, trait that, you can pick up and, you can maybe imbibe for yourself. So we've been trained to look at entrepreneurs and to meet entrepreneurs around the world and, pick up whatever learnings one can from their journey and their experiences.
Favorite city for a food adventure?
London and Tokyo.
Okay. Favorite street food?
The Bombay sandwich.
Food in Bombay or food in Delhi?
Food in Bombay.
Oh, really? Do you buy your groceries from Foodhall?
Yes.
Okay, great. Last question coming in, rapid fire is over. We have an audience question here. How has AI affected food industry?
I think artificial intelligence is still very much in its initial days, from whatever I gather and whatever research we've done in the matter. I think AI is affecting any industry in the form of data it generates. I think artificial intelligence is going to, over time, produce a lot of interesting data for us and be able to help every business person, just run their business a lot more effectively, a lot more efficiently, all of that. So I'm not seeing any major impacts, at least, or maybe I may not be so aware of the whole impact of AI, or maybe it's not come into or not trickled down into India yet. But the one area where I see AI affecting a lot is the quality of data that you get with AI is definitely improving by the day.
Awesome. So that's it. Avni, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
I had so much fun chatting with you. I think you're wise beyond your years, and I think you're lovely, and Foodhall is amazing, and I wish you all the best with your future plans.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. See you. Take care. Bye.